In 2009, at my college class reunion, I gave a presentation on my book, Confronting Believers, which is largely a critique of Christianity. Near the very end of my presentation, a man, whom I later found out as a minister, suggested I was being arrogant.
And maybe it isn't. Maybe you're not, there seems to be you're clearly, in my view, if you look at the spectrum of people, you're in a very, very small minority.
Your focus is refutation.
Well, that's the first step to getting to what is the truth. Now,
That from one direction.
It doesn't mean you don't have the right to do so. And I did.
well, all right. Let me finish up. Well, I would say this to finish up. The God that I believe in, to me, I think is just a much more mature and less. You see, so many religions, they were made 2,000 years ago. They're pre-scientific. So the God that I believe in is a God that doesn't speak to us through a sacred book or institution or person, but speaks to us through the voice of reason. The God that I believe in doesn't expect us to believe in Him. He just expects us to behave well. He's just not a big...
Right. He should behave.
Yeah, okay.
I'm all with you on that?
Yeah, and the God that I believe in doesn't intervene in our lives in any tangible way. He lets us forge our lives in the natural world.
He's given us freedom.
Yeah, so that's the God that I believe in. I mean, it's kind of a general idea, but that's... No, I'm a theist. I think God is personal. I think because we're personal beings, we ultimately must have come from a great personal being. Okay? All right, I better wrap. That's it. And thanks a lot. I had to wrap up my presentation because other programs were scheduled and people had to move on right away. So I didn't get a chance to rebut this man to my satisfaction. Somebody told me later that he is a minister. The point I tried to make about the Quran is that the typical Christian easily dismisses Muhammad, God's greatest prophet, without even having read the Quran. So who's being more arrogant here? The Christian or myself? At least I have studied the question of Christianity for decades. And I don't think it's arrogant to dismiss a religion if one has good reasons, and I do have good reasons, which this minister doesn't want to acknowledge. So this minister said, your position, in my opinion, is as arrogant as all those you scorn. You seem to scorn everybody else. I seem to scorn the other religions. Yes, I do scorn them. I do scorn them with damn good reason. I'm on the atheist side here. I agree with Sam Harris and Richard Dawkins and Dennis McKinsey and Dan Barker. Enough of this privileging of religion. Enough of this idea that it's bad form to criticize religion. Religions need to be called out on their irrationality, on their bad effects. Religions stand in the way of progress. They keep people apart instead of bringing them together. They provide soil for extremist groups. Now, I disagree with the atheists on the question of the existence of God, but I respect their position because they might be right, and for the most part they've come honestly to their conclusion. But the Christian position I do not respect because it is dishonest. It ignores so many contradictions and irrationalities. If you'd like to sit down with me and discuss these issues, I would be more than happy to do so. Let's record the discussion and let the public decide who has the better arguments. Surely you know it's not about me and whether I'm arrogant or not. It's about the issues.
5 years later, in 2014, we did sit down and discuss issues. He was quite willing to meet with me for breakfast at a restaurant before his Sunday church service. Reverend Victor Scalise is a liberal Christian minister, the son of a minister, and he also has a son himself who is a minister, so he comes from a very Christian background. Scorning other religions.
It is now recording.
Okay. It is Sunday, July the 20th, 2014.
Right.
Vic Scalise, okay?
I don't mean this in a censorious way, but hearing what you said, your position, in my opinion, is as arrogant as those you scorn. You seem to scorn everybody else. Well, that's true. I scorn Mormonism because I know it's false. Now, do you respect Mormonism? I don't.
I put it this way to one of my friends who is a great guy and who is a Mormon. I respect the way you live, but I think your theology is all wrong.
There you go. Yeah.
Okay?
All right.
But if people lived like Mormons lived, gave 2 years of their life to service to others, had a family night where they spent time with their families, we would have a better family unit in America. We would have a better America. But when I look at some of the theology, I say, how do they come up with this?
Right. Okay. All right. So now, now, why can't I do that to Christianity? Because when I find this is what I want to talk about, the things I find wrong with Christianity.
The Bible doesn't change, but certainly the way people look at it,
Yeah.
the way people interpret the Bible.
Yeah.
Okay, now you go back to the early battles that went on. There were the fundamentalists who said, well, if you change one iota of it, you've changed everything. Well, I don't agree with that. I think I accept the Bible for what the Bible says, but I understand the Bible in the light of modern times.
The problem of evil.
You said you see evidence of God in children's hospitals. Now, I talked to an atheist who says just the opposite. That if you go to a children's hospital, that's all you need to do to know there is no God. So how do you interpret kids sick and dying in a children's hospital as evidence of God?
Well, I spent 40 years as an on-call chaplain at Children's Hospital in Boston. And I was called on the occasion of a child either being sick unto death or dying. And in life, people die. And sometimes you die as a child, sometimes you die as an old person. But what I saw in that hospital setting was the love and compassion and caring of people. I saw children, I saw the faith of people. I'll just give you one example that I put in my memoir. A young man from Maine, 18 years of age. I walk into his room. I got a call to see this fellow, okay? And not all children in Children's Hospital are 18. Some are very young. And so we talked a little bit, and I found out he was a football player. And then he got to the point of his, wanted to discuss. He said, and this is a number of years ago now, because medicine has advanced so far that I want to, before I finish that story, just say that when I first started calling at Children's Hospital, 95% of the kids died of cancer. Now 5% of the kids do.
That much difference? Wow.
Huge difference.
Wow.
over a period of 4 decades, okay?
Wow.
So the young man said to me, I've been told I have to have a heart operation or not have one. If I don't have one, I'm going to have a sedentary life. I can't do anything. And if I have the operation, there's only a 50-50 chance that I will survive this operation. And I said to him, what are you going to do? He said, I'm going to have the operation. And I know that whether I live or die, that God is with me. And I feel strong faith. And his faith was just such a powerful thing to me. And I said, I'll see you tomorrow. I'll be back. He died. But he had no fear of death. He believed. He was a man of faith at 18. I never saw such great courage and faith in a person that we would think of an 18-year-old as not being very mature in life. So I could go on with numerous illustrations of families that I met in Children's Hospital. I'll just give you one other story.
Victor went on to tell the story of a good friend of his, a doctor, who lost his own child, but the experience motivated him to become a pediatric surgeon, and he has since done a tremendous amount of good in his life.
And saved the lives of thousands of children all over the world. So sometimes, as my mentor, Dr. Samuel Macaulay Lindsay, used to say, the worst that happens to us may be the best that happens to us if we don't let it get the best of us.
Okay.
So, yeah, I see it as a very positive thing.
I agree with Victor that sometimes good can come out of tragedy, and that we should do our best to respond constructively to tragedy. Those are valid insights. But that's not the issue. People and their reactions. The issue is God, and whether or not he created an excessively cruel world for us. God's on trial here, not people. Children's hospitals may produce some shining examples of people's faith, but children's hospitals are not at all a shining example of God's existence and love, but rather of his hiddenness and excessive harshness for a presumed loving God.
But yeah, it's so interesting how you interpret a children's hospital's experiences positively, whereas the atheist, I'm trying to think in terms of atheist thinking right now. So the atheist looks at it, well, what would he say? He would say what you described as evidence of the good in people as opposed to the good in God, because God just lets it happen. He just lets the people die.
When you say God,
suffer.
you say God lets it happen. I mean, I do believe in free choice, that God gives us an opportunity in life, and we choose how we live.
Well, I see this time and time again. You talk about the problem of natural evil, like diseases, and the Christian immediately avoids the issue and starts talking about human evil and man's free will decisions, instead of dealing with the real philosophical problem, natural physical evil. I at least acknowledge that the God I believe in is a bastard, a real mixed entity.
And we choose how we live.
Well, not diseases. We don't choose diseases.
No, diseases happen. But what I
But God's responsible.
God didn't say, I'm going to give you a disease. I don't believe.
In a sense he did. He didn't say you, and you, but he said, if God exists, God said, I'm making diseases. People are going to die, people are going to suffer. So he bears responsibility for all that suffering. So that to me is the strongest argument for atheism.
I don't see that at all. I don't see that at all.
You don't see God responsible for diseases?
No.
Then who is? This undeserved suffering, who do you blame? You can't blame it.
Well, we're always looking for someone to blame. Why do we need to always find someone to blame? That's what people do all the time.
He created life.
People all the time look for someone to blame. If an accident happened, we got to look for someone to blame all the time.
If there is someone to blame.
Well,
there is.
There isn't someone to blame.
You're giving God a free pass.
No, I'm not giving. I'm just saying God created this earth of ours. Okay.
Yeah.
That's it. And we're here. And if there's something, if a disease occurs or develops in time in our world, then we have people who have hopefully will develop the skills and abilities to defeat those things, whether it be tuberculosis or AIDS or
but
whatever.
in the meantime, a lot of people suffer, and the cause of that is God's design. He designed it that way. So I find Christians consistently picture God as this wonderful being. I picture him as a very mixed being, good and bad, and I don't think he gets a pass on all the other.
And I don't think it's the will of God that anyone would suffer. It's not the will of God.
It has to be, because he created the world that way.
It doesn't mean that people don't suffer, because there is suffering in this world. And certainly, I am just a very poor vessel to try to explain what geniuses in the ages. I mean, you and I can turn to people who are, really the big philosophers and writers on both sides of this, if you will.
Yeah.
I don't put myself in their category, but in a simple way, in my own way, I look at. You're asking me, I'm giving you my answer. My answer is, it's not the intention of God that anyone should, not his intention. But if we do suffer, then it is up to us to make a decision. As Viktor Frankl said, the final freedom is the freedom to choose how we will live and how we will die.
That you're veering off into human decisions. I'm talking about natural evil. And so you don't hold God responsible.
I don't. No, I don't.
God created the world, and
Right.
It's not my intention. What do you think it wasn't your intention? You created the world. It was your intention.
And you talked about the Bible, and the Bible said God created, and it was good.
Well, no, it wasn't. It was an animal kingdom that was animals killing each other.
That's just a difference of opinion we have, and
You can look at the animal kingdom and say, "Oh, this is good," when they're killing each other to eat.
What is the
survive.
purpose? Well, that was the purpose of it.
The purpose of animal. Why, you know that if you and I were God, we'd have made animals all herbivores. Anyway, all right. So you have a better opinion of God than I do.
Well, the fact that you have an opinion of God says then you're not an atheist. As you said.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, because I have an opinion of the God I believe in. That I have an opinion of your God.
The issue of hell.
Okay, now C.S. Lewis. Let's see. He's very good, but I don't buy what he says.
Okay.
He describes hell as a gloomy, dismal place that people choose themselves to live.
Right.
Okay. I say that that's not an accurate depiction of hell because it goes against what Jesus presented. Jesus talked about fire and flame and the furnace and suffering. So hell can't just be a gloomy place. Hell has got to be a place of eternal suffering, and such a place doesn't make any sense to me as a decent religion or a plausible religion.
Well, I told you that. I go back to the initial statement where we talked about God has yet more truth to reveal, and for me, my understanding of what hell is, it is our basically rejection of God. Okay, that if we fail to accept God, then that's our hell.
So he's going to punish us forever.
No, he doesn't punish us. We choose to punish ourselves.
We didn't.
We choose to punish ourselves by not. We have a choice. We can choose the pathway of the faith of Jesus and of Christianity and the way of God, of being loving and caring and kind with one another, or we can do other. And so we have a choice as to how we're. That's what I mean by Frankl, who has influenced me greatly, who was a Jew. In his thinking, the last freedom is the freedom to choose.
But that's not the issue, though. This is the analogy I give. If you're a third grade teacher and you tell your students they're talking too much, and the next person that talks to them, I'm going to cut their arm off, and a kid talks and cut their arm off. Hey, your choice. You made the choice.
Teacher made a bad decision.
No, the teacher. Right. So Christianity makes a bad setup in having hell. The punishment does not fit the crime at all.
Well, what does hell mean?
Hell means eternal suffering for conscious being. That's what it means.
And hell is what we create ourselves.
No, that's what God created. I didn't create hell. What are you talking about? You're talking about hell on earth. That's
hell
not
is
real hell.
From you're asking my position. That's all I can speak to. My position of hell is it is separation from God, God's love.
Okay, but
and it's a choice we make. Now, what it looks like, I have no idea.
Yes, you do have a very good idea because Jesus talked about it. Fire, gnashing, wailing of teeth. You know exactly what it looks like.
He's using language, oftentimes in the Bible, this language that is used to create a picture for people so that they will have some understanding. It doesn't mean
how bad it is.
Well, it doesn't mean that it is exactly like that. I don't accept that. Now, a person who is a fundamentalist would say, "Of course, that's exactly it." I'm not a fundamentalist. I don't.
It doesn't. Even if it's figurative.
I'm not Dante.
The word eternal is there, and it's severe pain, and that there's regardless of whether it's literal flames or not.
It may very well be eternal because of our choice.
But continuing to suffer. I mean, if we get a Charlie Manson or an Adolf Hitler, we may punish him, but do you keep torturing him forever? That's just like an insane idea to me.
That's a good question, and I've often thought about that myself as well. I don't know, okay, and none of us know. None of us can prove it one way or another. As far as I know, none of us are going to know until we die. My father used to say, is there a heaven? Well, I don't know, but if there is, That's great. And if there isn't, well, I have to live here on earth as well as I can. And I feel the same. I don't. There's some things I just don't know. There's some things I believe, but I don't know.
Well, I believe it's you cannot know about God for sure, and you cannot know about afterlife for sure. But the Bible describes an afterlife for people who don't accept Jesus as eternal, severe suffering. To me, that's an insane, immoral idea.
Well,
And I can't accept it.
I don't think people. I do not believe that people who do not accept Jesus are going to are going to hell.
Well, then how can you be a Christian? Because that's what it says in the Bible.
Well, because I believe that God is love. I believe the larger truth is that God is love.
Well, then you're believing in my God. You're not believing in your God.
Well, I do. I believe in Jesus Christ, but I believe that God is a God of love, and I believe it's how we interpret the Bible too. It's how we interpret it.
But you can't. How can you interpret Jesus' words as other than what he said? There's no ambiguity about that. There is. I mean, why is the church preached hell all these years?
Well, wait. People are very selective about what they take in Jesus' words, and so, what can I say about that?
Well, let me get Jesus' words on hell here.
I can't say anything more other than that I believe it's separation from God. That's it. That's
Well,
what
I think that's part of it, that it's also flame, fire, gnashing of teeth, so it's more than that.
That's a painting. That's painting a picture. That's what it is. It's painting a picture
Of something real. Hell is not real, not false, it's real. The picture might be just a description of it, but
Well, I don't see. You and I, we're not gonna solve this today or ever because we just don't see it the same way, and that's okay. I accept that you see that in that light, and I'm not going to change, at least at this particular point. Neither of us sees any reason to change our point of view on that. So maybe there's another question right here.
okay.
Victor is saying that hell is what he interprets it to be, not what Jesus said it was. I find that is what liberal Christians do. They regard themselves as devout followers of Jesus, yet feel free to ignore some of his core teachings. The end of the world.
I believe he was the Son of God. That's what I believe.
Can a son of God believe that the end of the world is coming within his lifetime, and then still it's 2,000 years later and it still hasn't happened? I say a son of God can't be wrong about something so important.
The second coming. You're talking about the second coming now?
No, I'm talking about second coming. That's what Christians believe because Jesus turned out to be wrong. Is what I think.
Well, it certainly didn't happen immediately, and it hasn't happened in 2,000 years.
Right, but he said it would.
So that would happen. Who knows?
So he was wrong. So he can't be the son of
Well,
God.
he's not wrong. We just don't know what time that is.
He said we do. It was within his generation. He said.
Didn't happen.
So he's wrong,
Then he was wrong.
and he can't be the son of God.
Why? Because he
you
was
can't be-
man
because
and
you-
God.
Yeah, but you can't be wrong about something that important.
He was both man and God.
You're going to believe somebody predicts the end of the world and was wrong, and you still think he's God.
He's both human and he's also God.
All right, I can't buy that, but
Okay.
all right. Let me continue with my objections of Jesus. I have about a dozen of them. That was one of them, that he predicted the end of the world and it didn't happen.
Well, it did not happen. I agree with you that did not happen.
You agree
it
with
has
me?
not happened.
And you agree with me? He was wrong.
What I believe is that people in his era thought that meant that it was imminent.
So what,
And what it has proved
right.
is, and what it is time has proved is that it was not imminent.
Yeah, but
and
he was
I
one of the
agree with
people
that.
who believed it.
And I agree with that. People thought it would be imminent. It was not imminent. That's what I believe.
yeah, but that's not the point. The point is Jesus thought it was, and you're saying he could be
saying
wrong about something like that.
Well, what are his exact words? I don't have them in my head.
I do.
Well, okay, I'm sure you do.
Not in my head, but I have them here.
Okay.
All right.
Pardon
Let's
me.
see. All right.
What's he say?
Jesus said, "Assuredly, I say to you, this generation will by no means pass away till all these things are fulfilled." And another place, as you probably know, he says, "Those standing here will not pass away." The people he's talking to.
Didn't happen.
Okay, but you don't think
But
that...
I don't find it disturbing.
I find it very disturbing.
Okay. Then we just have an honest disagreement.
Okay.
Belief is more important than behavior.
Another major thing. Jesus taught belief is more important than behavior. You agree with that?
The belief
That
is...
belief is a better or a higher, more prime virtue than behavior.
I don't know. I think they're both important.
Both important, yeah, both important. Agreed, but he taught the key. Well, if he says, he who believes, Mark 16:16, he who believes and is baptized will be saved, but he who does not believe will be condemned. That's very clear. Belief is the key. Thief on the cross. Thief was a thief.
I'm going to mention that today.
Yeah, well, he didn't deserve to go to heaven. He was a thief. I hate thieves.
But God's forgiveness is larger.
What does he do to the atheist, though? The atheist who leads a good life, he sends him to hell.
No, he doesn't.
Yes, he does.
I don't believe that.
But that's what he says.
Yeah, well, I don't accept that.
You don't accept that Jesus said, he who...
I'm not saying that Jesus didn't say that in his time. I'm just saying that I believe that God, I've said to you before, I believe that God's love is greater than anything else, period.
He who does not believe will be condemned. He's condemning my Kobe roommate, Larry, the atheist, to hell. He's condemning me to hell. He's condemning my sister to hell.
I don't believe it.
So you're saying he didn't say this?
I didn't say he didn't say
He said it, but he was wrong.
No, I'm not saying he's wrong either.
You can't have it every way.
Well, I'm not having it every way. I'm just saying that there are certain statements that are made into... You're taking something out of context.
This is a classic Christian dodge, claiming you're taking something out of context, yet not explaining how the context changes the very plain meaning of the passage.
I think you have to put it in the...
No context here.
No, you put it in the context of the time in which it was said. He was both God and man, so he is, he couldn't, he's going to die like any man. Though he was God, if he was God, he wouldn't, he's crucified.
Yeah.
He lived a human life. And in living that human life, there were things that were done and said that were very human. That's all. And I can't explain it because it's inexplainable. It's inexplicable. How can you...
I can explain it. He was wrong. He wasn't the Son of God.
Okay,
therefore.
and that's your view, and mine is
So
different.
that's why I believe in a more general God, because this God, like Allah, doesn't cut it for me.
Okay.
It doesn't make sense. I don't see how you can just ignore this. I mean, you say, well, I'm not ignoring it. I'm just... Well, what are you doing? I don't know. I say the thief does not go to heaven. I say the good atheist does.
And I say that, as I will say this morning, that forgiveness is unexpected and undeserved. And God is like that. God is a forgiving God.
He sends people to hell.
Well,
How could he be...
you said that. I didn't say that.
No, Jesus said that.
No,
I wouldn't say it. This is not my idea.
I just don't. I don't buy that. Okay.
I don't think you're being consistent at all.
Okay. I may not be. You may say I'm not consistent.
Look at this.
You're asking me how I believe. If you're asking me my belief, I'm just.
No, I'm asking you to support or justify your belief. So here's another example of Jesus' intolerance. He gives a parable about, I forget the details, but he ends it with, bring here those enemies of mine and slay them before me. And that's the master in the parable, which means Jesus or God. So Jesus, preaches all this loving and forgiveness, but he's also at the same time saying, if you don't believe in me, you go to hell, and if you're going to be slain. So I can't just ignore those words of Jesus. Jesus' teaching on divorce. Another example. Divorce. Jesus says remarriage is adultery. Do you think that's true?
No, I don't.
So he's wrong about that too. Say yes. See that to me he's a religious extremist.
He says divorce, with cause, the cause is the question. If you're just divorcing for the sake of divorce, that's wrong. But it says if you're talking about adultery, that was another situation.
All right, so in one of the Gospels it's adultery, it's okay to get divorced, that doesn't even make sense. I mean, how about physical abuse? That would be a much better reason.
That's another reason. That's why that going back to that initial statement that opened up our discussion today, I have yet more truth to reveal. Okay, and I think in our age we find that more things are revealed to us.
That divorce is okay?
That divorce certainly has a place. I have a daughter who is divorced, and I believe that.
So she can't get remarried again?
Well, she did get remarried.
Oh, then she's an adulterer.
And
according to Jesus.
Well, again, the question is, what do you believe about divorce and the sanctity of marriage?
Okay, now I believe a very good teaching. I mentioned this in my presentation. I believe that monogamy is an ideal we should shoot for. And you certainly should take marriage very, very seriously. But there are many situations that many people experience a not so good or a bad
That's right.
first marriage that they couldn't work out.
That's right.
Then they met the right person and have an excellent second marriage. But Jesus says they are committing adultery. He was a religious extremist.
He was an extremist.
To say that, you'd have to be.
Well, he was an extremist.
He didn't say you should. He didn't say you
They
should
wouldn't have
take.
killed him if he wasn't an extremist. They wouldn't have crucified him if he wasn't an extremist.
Right, he was an extremist.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And he was wrong about divorce.
He may very well have been wrong about divorce today. In his time, again, he was a man living in his time. He was speaking
Well,
to
then he can't be the Son of God if he's speaking only for his time. If you're going to be the Son of God, you've got to speak in much more broad terms.
As
right?
you know as well as I do, the Bible has things that are cultural in nature in it, and you have things that are spiritual in nature in it. Everything you're picking up are cultural things.
That's spiritual.
To me,
Marriage is spiritual.
Marriage itself is spiritual, but the cultural, whether you're getting divorced and things like that. I mean, to me, again, I keep on going back to more truth is shed as we grow in time.
This is the classic progressive revelation defense, that God reveals more truth to us over time. The ultimate intention of God's teachings are gradually revealed to us through a process of growth, better understanding, and more sophisticated interpretations. And thus, what was originally deemed black can ultimately be understood as white. Up can be understood as down, left as right, and no divorce as divorce is okay. Horse manure. I don't think Jesus' teaching on remarriage was correct even for his day. I think that's one of Jesus' great failings. He constantly overstated for the sake of impact at the expense of accuracy. He rarely qualifies his pronouncements with the words usually, generally, or in principle. Instead, he makes flat-out categorical statements like, whoever marries a woman who is divorced commits adultery. Period. Historical context.
I look into the Bible for those things that are the fundamental truths of the faith, such as God is love, okay, that we should love our neighbor, that those are the kinds of things that are important about the Bible. Not that you eat kosher on Friday night or Saturday.
Right.
Those, or you can't eat pig or what. That stuff has nothing to do.
But then it shouldn't have been in the Bible. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Not ridiculous, but what it is the Bible is many things. The Bible is a spiritual book, but it's also a cultural book. I mean, God, you read the book of Numbers. The only positive thing in the book of Numbers is a benediction in it. The rest of it is, they're killing kids and women. It's a terrible thing.
And yet you accept this as...
No, it's a history. It is the history of the Jewish people. That's what it is, okay?
Yeah, but I don't know how many times I've heard Christians say to me, you have to understand the context. And I say, No, I don't. Slavery is wrong with the
course
other
it is.
context.
It is wrong.
Remarriage is okay, regardless of the context.
Slavery is wrong.
And yet the Bible supports it.
And they were wrong.
Okay. So you believe in a holy book that has lots of bad things in it. So that's
I believe in a book which, over a period of 2,000 years, that the fundamental truths remain the same and are positive, but there's much in it which is at odds with where we have grown over a period of 2,000 years.
like and women's equality.
That's right. I believe in women's equality.
But to me, a sacred book has got to say right off the bat, hey, men and women are equal.
Well,
And to you,
for its time, when it was written, Christianity gave women more opportunity than any other religion. In fact, look today. I mean, look at the Muslims today. My God.
No.
I mean, we're in the 21st century. They don't get it. But I mean, Christians led the battle for racial justice here in this country.
Despite the scripture. Oh yeah, and they had to fight against other Christians who didn't want to change.
Well, there are always people in any group.
Homosexuality.
Yeah. So you know
What?
what's going to happen then with the gay issue.
What?
Christians are going to appropriate that, and then 50 years from now they'll say, "Yeah, we were at the forefront of the gay rights."
No, they weren't.
They weren't.
No.
Is that an eternal value, or is that a cultural value?
No, I think that if you're asking me my opinion,
Yeah.
I'm saying that it's not normative. Homosexuality is not normative. I mean, the Bible is only one of the factors we deal with. In fact, the other is the Holy Spirit. But let's stick on the homosexual issue for a minute. The Bible, when you speak about homosexuality, basically says that it is not normative,
Right.
and it is not normative.
The animal kingdom has lots of homosexual.
That doesn't mean it's not normative.
Well,
Is it normative?
yeah, I think it is.
You think putting one's penis in a man's ass is
You would-
a normative thing?
No, but that's God's fault.
That's
guys.
normative.
That's God's fault for
That's not
creating.
Don't blame God.
The thought I had in mind here was that God is responsible for creating animals in such a way that gender identity and instincts do not follow a strictly contained pattern. I'm not implying here that homosexuality constitutes a fault. I'm arguing that if you're going to argue it's a fault, as the Bible does, then it's God's fault.
Yeah, because He created those people who are attracted to their same sex. That's the way they were born.
That's the way they were born.
Yeah.
Okay. So then
They try to change. They can't change.
So you want to blame God for that?
Yeah. I don't blame them. I'm blaming Christianity for making it such for designated it as evil behavior.
No, as a Christian, my belief is we accept all people. We should be loving.
But you cannot be loving if you say, okay, you're gay, that's fine, but you can't have any intimate relationship.
I didn't say you couldn't.
But if you do, then you're sinning.
All I'm saying is, from my perspective, I'm saying two things, and one of them you may disagree on both of them. Okay, and maybe 20 years from now, if I live 20, I don't think I'll live 20 more years, but if I live 20 more years, I might change my mind on the first one I'm going to mention. But for me, there's no such thing as gay marriage. Marriage is a single man and a single woman. One man, one woman. That's marriage. To me, that's what a marriage is. Now, other people may, and for thousands of years, that's what it was. That's my definition. The second thing is that I don't believe that homosexuality is normative. That's all. Now,
Neither is left-handed.
Do I believe that people should be accepted, loved? If I had a son or daughter, would I? Of course I would.
But you can't accept it.
Do I believe they should have all the rights of other people? Absolutely.
Well, then you believe in gay marriage.
I don't believe in it.
You
That's
just-
not a
you
right.
just contradicted
No,
yourself.
I didn't contradict myself.
You said
A marriage.
according to you, a gay person does not have the right to marry.
Well, do I have a right to be a basketball player at 5'6"?
Yeah.
But I'm not going to be a basketball player because I'm not 6'5". Okay? Yeah.
All right. So how?
Yeah.
I don't
There's
get the connection.
The connection is that.
In my opinion, Christians, besides being experts at deflecting from the relevant point of an issue, are also experts at using false analogies. Victor's point here is that people don't have the right to be allowed to engage in restricted activities, like professional basketball, when their bodies and skill sets do not qualify them to play at that level. Okay, but gay people are capable of healthy, long-term relationships. They are capable of raising children well. Thus, they are being denied a basic human right simply because of historical bigotry. Victor's analogy is not valid.
Yeah.
I don't get the connection.
Yeah, the connection is that that marriage, we may, as I said, we could argue this all day. You're not going to change my opinion. I'm not going to change yours. I'm just saying to you that for me, and I'm only speaking for myself, that marriage is a sacred thing, and it is between us, one man and one woman. If you want to have a union, a civil union or something like that, that's fine. No one's denying them their rights. Do I think they're going to go to hell? No, I don't think they're going to go to hell. Do I think they're...
The Bible does. And you're contradicting the Bible again and again.
Progressive revelation.
I'm saying to you that the Bible is the basic things of the Bible. I believe in the fundamental faiths that I find in the Bible. But I also believe that in the Holy Spirit, which means that we, going back to the comment about when the pilgrims left, that God still has more truth to share with us. So things do change. Otherwise, it's the same thing as I use the analogy of medicine. Does medicine say, I often said to people in the church, do you want a doctor practicing medicine on you that was practiced in 1900 or 2000? And should we as Christians be locked into how people thought about the Bible and the faith?
It's not people, it's Jesus.
No. It is how we understand the truth.
So when Jesus says the horse is black, you can eventually realize, the horse is white.
I'm saying that let me tell you what they said in seminary to us. That's a very good thing. Every year, Dr. Belinsky was the head of the psychology department. He said, what you should do every year is go through the Bible, read the Bible, and make notes on it. He said, what you're going to find is that you look back, you're going to find that the Bible has changed. He said, no, what you really found out is you have changed. The Bible has remained the same, but your life experience now feeds into the Bible in a different way than it was. And so that is what is really changing. So as people looked at the Bible at one particular point, they viewed certain things. For example, I know one of the questions you had in your paper was creation. So let me use that as a classic example. 1900 people said, the Bible says the earth's created in 7 days. The fundamentalists said, if you don't believe that, you're going to hell. They were wrong. Okay? Is the Bible wrong? No. But that's the way they interpreted what they read.
Okay, in that case.
Okay.
In that case.
Number two, 20 years later, they said, no. That's not it at all. What it is that those 7 days were God's days. They were not the kind of days that we think of, and that's what it is. So it's still creation. We still got it in 7 days, right?
Okay.
In other words, people used to normally interpret the Bible more literally, but now interpret it much more figuratively. In this case, that God created the world not in 7 literal days, but figurative days. To God, a lengthy era can be regarded as a day. Okay, I would expect a divinely inspired book to be more clear, but okay, I don't have a big problem with that.
What is important to me about that creation story is, and the Bible speaks to it as far as I'm concerned, who created? God is the creator. Why did he create it? He created it for his living beings, okay?
With regard to creation, I don't have a problem with that. That makes sense. That people understood it better as it went along. But certain other things, you can't have Jesus say remarriage is adulterated and say, aha, now I understand that was not correct. You can't do that.
The reason you have to ask yourself, for me, you don't want to put it in the context, but I do, because in those days, a person could put away, as the Muslims can still do today, by saying, I divorce you, I divorce you, I divorce you, for no reason than they want to get rid of. And Jesus said, that's wrong. You can't do that. And and I would agree with that. That's why it's important to understand the biblical context in which the comments are made.
In my opinion, a presumed son of God must teach eternal values, not culture-bound ones.
My being arrogant.
I have performed the wedding of people who have been divorced once. If I can run into someone, and I have, who have been divorced 4 times, I'd say, wait a minute. Before I have to understand.
But you're using your judgment. You're not using Jesus'
That's right.
judgment.
Of course I'm using my judgment. You're
But
using
not-
your judgment here, right?
Compared to Jesus' judgment.
You're using your judgment.
I think my judgment's better than Jesus' judgment.
Now
'Cause I don't-
you're being hypocritical.
How so?
Come on.
I'm using my judgment
your
that
better than
remarriage is
Jesus?
not adultery.
No. You're saying your judgment is better than Jesus? Come on.
Yeah. Jesus was an extremist.
That's arrogant. Now, that's what I call arrogant.
Okay, all right. Well, good. We got to that. That's why, because you think Jesus taught all wise things or something.
If you picked 5 of the greatest people who ever walked on this earth, he would be one of them.
Influential. I wouldn't say greatest. I don't have the same opinion of
Would
Jesus.
you be in that category? I know.
Influential? No. I'm talking about correct moral judgments. I don't believe in hell. Jesus does. I don't call other ethnic groups dogs the way Jesus does.
Matthew 15:26, Jesus speaking. It is not good to take the children's bread and throw it to the dogs.
Jesus was more than a great moral teacher, but he certainly was one of the greatest moral teachers of all time.
I disagree with you. I think he was an extremist.
You are in a minority, in a very severe minority.
Not in the atheist community.
Well, no, that doesn't mean you're not a good guy or a great. It just means that your thinking is in a very narrow range of people. Maybe 1%, as I've read.
First of all, atheist is much more than that. And then I think there's a lot of people who would agree. Well, the thing is, the whole cultural. It's the same as if we were in a Muslim country, and I said, I don't think Muhammad's that. I think I'm wiser than Muhammad. I do. You think you're wiser than Muhammad? I do. I think I am. And of course, and if you were a Muslim, you'd say, boy, that is arrogant. Muhammad is one of the greatest figures ever to live. And I would say, well, most influential, yeah, but I wouldn't say his moral teachings are better than my simple conclusions about life.
Your prayers granted.
He said that your prayers will be answered. That's not true.
Well, your prayers are answered, but they may not be answered in the way we think or wish.
He said they would. All right, let me read you the exact quote. Okay, Mark 11:24. Whatever things you ask when you pray, believe that you receive them and you will have them. That's not true. He's a religious extremist. He's preaching dreams. That's simply not true. And you know it isn't, right? You don't get what you pray for. Right?
You don't always get what you pray for.
Says here, whatever you ask for, believe you'll receive them and you will have them.
And he says elsewhere, ask and it'll be given to you. Knock and the door shall be open.
Right. That's not true.
On a simplistic basis, you're right. But more deeply so, you get what you need. That's what you're
Okay, well, I need my best friend not to die of cancer. Dies of cancer.
Okay.
My prayers weren't answered.
And he may die of cancer. Then
So
what is it that you need to be able to do? What is God asking you to do with your life in that situation?
Victor is instinctively going off the topic again, avoiding the negative and focusing on the positive. We are talking about whether prayers get answered. That is the issue, not how to respond when they don't get answered. That is a different topic.
How is that relevant?
It's not very relevant in the case of my friend Alberto Pena.
Well, it's very relevant to your life, but it's not relevant to what Jesus said.
Well, in terms of what he did was he had to respond to the death of his child, and he was able to save the lives of thousands or more. So,
Okay, but that's irrelevant to what Jesus said. Jesus says, whatever you ask, believe you receive them, and you will have them. That's what he said. It's simply wrong. He was a religious extremist. He also said that God will feed you like he feeds the birds of the air, right? Did he say that? God doesn't feed the birds of the air. A large percentage of them starved.
and a large percentage of people starve.
Right, so Jesus was again a religious extremist.
Well,
Focusing on the negative.
taking, if I had put a list together of things that Jesus said, and you have specifically worked on your list that's important to you. But if I put together a list, I would, and was asking you questions, they would be different than the questions you have raised. Many of them would be. Okay.
Right, but that's what you do. Well, I mean, this is one of the guys at the my presentation 5 years ago said that I'm focusing on refutation, as though I'm ignoring the good stuff. I mean, that I didn't set out to refute. I set out to confirm, and I found I couldn't confirm it. And so then I'm focusing on the bad stuff in order to prove that this whole thing doesn't work, and people should believe in a more general God and not the Christian God, because the Christian God's tied in with so many bad things. Yeah, if you had a list of, I mean, Jesus said, "Do unto others as you would have them do unto you, and as you do unto the least of these, you've done unto me." He had a lot of excellent teachings, but he overstated about prayer and about hell and about the end of the world, and he believed in the Old Testament God, who was just a cruel, vindictive tyrant.
He was a man of his people.
Well, he should have been smarter.
Well, he was a man of his people. Yeah.
I mean, a son of God has got to transcend his culture. You can't say, "Oh, the world's going to end in my lifetime," and not only, he can't even leave the teaching about an afterlife ambiguous. He can say, "I don't know," but he can't say people are going to be in a furnace or a fire.
The Holy Spirit.
Well, I noticed
Let me say this to you at this point.
No.
You raise many thought-provoking questions, and I appreciate that because it's causing me to think more deeply about some of these things. I still feel, however, that for me, that many of these things are either cultural or contextual for me, okay, and that it doesn't in any way cause me to question my particular faith or belief that Jesus is the Son of God, because you may say, well, what about this or that, because of the context or the culture of the time. And I think that we have to grow in our faith, and I don't believe that the Christian faith is based solely upon the Bible. In fact, a short time ago, maybe a couple of years ago, when I was always taking courses, trying to learn more, and people were saying they thought that the 21st century might not be the century of the Bible, but be the century of the Holy Spirit. And what we're seeing particularly we're seeing the demise of the Western culture, Christianity, and the rise of the African, Asian, Hispanic kind, which is more Holy Spirit driven than it is biblically centered.
I think Christianity's shift from the Bible to the Holy Spirit, the presumed Spirit of God, is essentially this. People subconsciously realizing, finally, that Christianity does not make rational sense. And therefore, since we deeply love its good parts and want to hang on to them, we're going to forget rationality and make it an emotionally centered, emotionally driven belief system. That way we don't have to intellectually justify anything.
So you have to also, we need to take into consideration that Christianity as a whole is not simply limited only to the Bible. The Bible is one of the tools of the Christian faith, but it is not the only tool of the Christian faith.
I think it's the central tool.
Well, it has been for the 20th century, And certainly for me, the gospel is very, very important. And there are, I have to say, but I think it's on solid ground. But anyway, I just wanted to know, I appreciate the challenging and the spirit in which you do it in. Okay?
The negatives in Christianity.
Well, see, what's very disturbing to me is that Christians don't see the negative part of their religion. I mean,
Again, Victor avoids the issue, which is the negative parts of Christian teachings. And he immediately starts talking about the negative behavior of Christians, which is a separate issue.
Oh, I see the negative. I see a lot of negative. I see people who call themselves Christian. You asked a question earlier about belief as opposed to doing.
yeah.
To me, the most important thing is that I think Christianity should lead. And let me tell you a negative story about Christianity. It was told to me by a woman who was a member of the church in Cambridge where I did an interim ministry, and she was black. She told me the story of when she went down south. This was before the integration of Jews. And she walks up the stairs to the church and met by the deacons at the church door and saying, "You can't come in here." And she said, "Why?" It's a true story. He said, "Why?" They said, "This is a white church." She said, "Oh, I thought it was a Christian church." And she turned around and walked away. Okay, that's the worst. You know that to me it's that and so I would be the first one to say that so often we as Christians are the worst advocates of Christianity because we fail so often. On the other hand, that's why we should be Christians. That Jesus said Christianity is not for the well but for the sick. That we are, okay?
But he referred to non-Hebrews as dogs.
And yet he was a man of his age, but he still went to the Samaritans. He was there, and he used.
All right, that's a good story.
And he uses the Samaritans who were like in different ages of different people. But for his age, it was the Samaritans. Mm-hmm. For him to use them in a positive way was.
Well, that's an excellent lesson. Yeah, that's one of his good.
He was
ones.
The moral flaws of the Bible.
Well, maybe a final point is that so often. This is what I can't do. I can't look at the Bible and it's over here it says 2 and 2 is equal to 5. I can't accept that. Oh, look over here, Mickey. It says 2 and 2 is 4. Oh, okay. Now everything's solved. It's not. The 2 and 2 equals 5 is over here still. The slavery is okay is still here. People calling.
No, I think you have to ask why is it there and what does it mean?
It's a mistake. It's just a bad wisdom.
Slavery is not good.
Right, and yet the Bible supports it. That there by itself is enough for me to dump the whole thing and say, hey, I'm going to believe in my own concept of God. And so that's why I think I'm wise with the Jesus, because I don't believe in the Old Testament God. Jesus did. You have to admit that. He believed in the Old Testament God. It's one of his...
He believed in God. He believed God was his father. So,
the God of Isaac, Abraham, and Jacob. Yeah. That guy.
And they were all imperfect, like we are. We're all imperfect.
God's not supposed to be ordering genocides. Not my God.
Absolutely.
But he does. Your God does. You're not. That's not your God. No, God in the Bible is not your God. Are you saying that?
No, I'm saying that people who say that he orders genocide, that's not right.
So people wrote that part.
And they're people. Well, I mean, you know as well as I do that the Bible was written by people, and I know that.
But you believe it's inspired by God.
I believe it's inspired.
Then you believe they're inspired to write down, kill all these people.
But I don't believe that it is the inerrant word of God in the sense that
then aren't you a liberal Christian? Because you're picking and choosing.
Oh, I am a liberal Christian.
Yeah.
I mean, conservatives. What I just said now to you today, would a conservative Christian would be horrified. They'd be horrified. Okay, and and there are certain. If you're speaking to a conservative congregation, there are certain code words you have to use. The blood of the Lamb. I don't believe that. Forget it.
Yeah. You don't think my path is smart? I could just believe in my own God. I'm not tied to a book or people who wrote it, thousands of years ago.
Not a question about being tied to a book. It's rather
feeling free to interpret.
I think we should be able when you read any book, if you took 10 people and you gave them a book and you asked them, tell us what you think about this, they give you 10 different interpretations. And
yeah, but there's certain things if Jesus says the horse is black, I cannot interpret that to mean the horse is white. I cannot do that.
Well,
I have to say, geez, I'm going to believe in a God that makes more sense to me, which as it turns out, is just a God that not tied to any particular religion. Because the Muslim God makes even less sense, and the Hindu gods I think are superstitious, and the Jewish God is the same thing as the Christian God in the Old Testament. So that's the path I take: soft theism. I believe in the probability of a general God. And who speaks,
And that seems to suit you and your lifestyle well, just as mine seems to suit me well.
Am I going to hell?
And so you don't think I'm going to hell?
No.
Even though Jesus does?
No, he doesn't.
Yes, he does.
No, he doesn't.
Denial!
How could he be a loving...
Well, that's the way you do it. You work it backwards. You say, you work it backwards. This couldn't possibly be Jesus, because that's not loving. I say, well, that's not loving, therefore Jesus is not the Son of God. Those are different ways of thinking. I see the bad stuff and I say, this can't be the Son of God. This is a religious extremist who taught some very good things and some bad things.
Well, we see the same thing, but we come out of different places.
Yeah.
Apologizing for publicly suggesting that I'm arrogant.
But I go back to the statement I made earlier. I apologize for saying that publicly. I shouldn't have said that. It was an intemperate remark on my part. And, one of the things I've learned over my period of life is that sitting down with someone and getting to know them a little bit better and listening to them and feeling comfortable with them, it changes everything. And it means that I can respect a person for what they believe, even when I don't believe what they believe. And to me, that's very important. And I think, as a Christian, Christians ought to be able to say to somebody, listen, I respectfully disagree with your position, just like you respectfully disagree with my position, but you're a good person, I'm a good person, and we can have these kinds of dialogues, and it can be challenging. And I think one of the things that mature people can do is to sit down and do this. I'd love to do this again, and for me to think a little bit more about some of the things you've said, because I haven't looked at some of those passages, because, as I said to my wife, there's certain passages in the Bible I never preach on.
I know, yeah, right. Yeah.
I preach on the good ones.
Yeah.
Okay. Does any minister preach on the bad ones?
Very few. Some of the fundamentalists might preach on hell.
They might, but I don't preach on that stuff.
Yeah, so I wasn't like hurt that you said I was arrogant. I was like, oh yeah, why do you think so? Back it up. And then we didn't have time to go into it, so that's why I wanted.
Whether you were hurt or not, it was wrong of me to say it. No. It was no. I'm just telling you. I'm telling you how I felt.
That's
and when I do that, sometimes my mouth is in action before my brain, and that's not good. You are a person who I can see you pay attention to detail. You keep everything. I thought I was.
See my notes.
I thought I was a person of detail.
Okay. Thank you, Victor.
Thanks for your time.
So that was our discussion. I appreciated Victor's willingness to talk, and as I am fond of saying, I regard liberal Christians as a force for good, but I don't think their belief system is valid for all the reasons we discussed. Thanks for listening.